Hey guys, I'm going to make a little video here. We're going to talk about thrust washers today. Why you need them, why I feel you need them, what they do, their purpose, how you install them, all that good stuff. So we'll start out with this. I got a Suzuki rotating assembly with a stock rod, stock thrust washers, and bearing. A Wiseco piston. Piston is just a regular Wiseco piston, has the skirt cut a little bit. Over here, got another Wiseco piston with the billet washer set up on a stock rod. So, the point of the thrust washers is to keep your rod centered in your bore. Obviously, there's no thrust washers on the bottom, so they decided to keep the rod centered up here. So if you have a nice tight bore, your crank's rotating, your rod stays centered. That's the theory anyways. So, pop this apart. So there is... So this is the stock wrist pin bearing, stock thrust washers. So you can see the stock thrust washer is made out of steel, and they step down inside of it. Here is the 99 Lt250 bearing. As you can see, when it's in the rod, it's flush. It's a little narrower. You can see, I'll show you the difference here. This is the RM, this is the LT. So, here's the washers. Made out of billet aluminum. Doesn't want to focus. As you can see, they don't have the step in them. We eliminate the step out of it. Hence the need for the RM bearing. So if you can see, you put your thrust washers there. You take your stock thrust washers. Get the exact same height. Same height. Just like that. So the theory behind the billet washers is the steel washers, over a little bit of time, they get brittle because they're steel, they're cast, and they break, and then they destroy your motor. So we go with the billet washers. Whoops. Go with the billet washers, get rid of the step, add a little bit of strength to it, better material. Different bearing, genuine Suzuki, and just a better setup. So I have another washer here that I broke in the vise. You can see how thin it is. It gets really, really thin in there. And then once it starts to crack on the inside, it works its way to the outside, and it'll break this thing into about, I don't know, 10 pieces, and then it'll go all through your motor. I've seen it numerous times. I've never actually had it happen myself, but I've seen it. Now, I've heard people talk that you don't need a thrust washer, so we're going to discuss that. So we're going to take the crank, put the pin in, or put the bearing in there. This is hard to do with one hand. Alright, slide that through. Alright. I don't know, guys. I mean, do you think that you need thrust washers in here? I do. I don't I don't feel that this piston would ever in a million years expand enough to take up that 3/16 roughly probably gap that we have right here. So, you know, you're in a bore like this and everything's over to one side, that has to, I mean, how could that not throw your motor out of balance, causing premature wear on your lower rod bearing, your wrist pin bearing, and your crank bearings, and vibrations, etc. You get the picture. I mean, you know, a lot of guys I've seen people do this, and there's been running motors, people tell me that they don't have anything in here, you know, and I'm sure this would work just fine if I threw this crank in a 500 cylinder, threw an FMF pipe on it that made its peak power at 5,500 RPMs. It'd probably be fine, honestly. I mean, it'd probably run. I'm sure it would cause failures and wear stuff, but it'd run. I know it would. But, you know, would I want to put it on with, say, an HPR, Kenny Roberts, DCS, any of them pipes, Dr. Q, Ayin, I think that's how you pronounce it. Would I put one of them pipes on this motor and spin it up, you know, say, you know, 7,500 plus RPMs? No, I wouldn't. It just sounds like failure waiting to happen to me. I mean, you know, yeah, right there. So, that's that. So, I covered that. I think you need them. I think they're essential. I think they last forever. I mean, they're cheap. I make them as cheap as I possibly can. Others make them. I'm not just doing this as a promotional video for myself. Others make them. And, you know, whatever. Get them wherever you need to. I don't really care. I just do this because it needs to. I feel like it's a necessary modification. Is it going to increase performance? No. Is it going to increase reliability? I believe so. I've had these particular bearings, this particular bearing washer setup in this motor right here that I have tore apart for 5 years on the same washers, and every year you take them out, they don't even look like they're even wore at all, and I put them right back in. So that's that. All right, so I have people asking me, you know, usually once a month I have somebody buy a set, or every 6 months or whatever, and they are confused, or somebody wants to buy thrust washers and they don't want to buy bearing, they just want to buy the washers. So I'm going to cover that real quick. So when you have a stock 500 bearing, it might be brand new. Yeah, I mean, I get it. You don't want to buy another bearing if you already have one. But the problem is with that, you put this, when you go to put it together with the billet washers, it's not going to work. Because as explained earlier in the video, you have the step in the stock washers. And when you put these washers in here with a stock, you're obviously not going to have enough room. You're not going to have enough room. It's not going to work. And I get it, it sucks, you know. You have a brand new bearing, you want to use it, but it's junk. And I've had numerous ones that I've thrown away because, you know, or have them laying on the shelf because they're just, you don't have it, there's no use for them. It really isn't. I hate to say it, but I wouldn't put them back in. Stock washers, that is. So, this and these are junk. We'll just get rid of them. Now we're going to talk about installing these thrust washers and bearings in a motor. And we'll say this is going to be your running motor right here. You're going to pull your cylinder off. Obviously you're going to have the crank and cases, but you're going to pop your wrist pin out. Take your piston out. We'll say this is your old piston, this is your new one. So we're going to take this one. I like to do it a little differently, but I'm going to do it this way because I only have one hand. But get rid of the old bearing. We're going to put the new RM bearing in. we're going to slide the pin through the new bearing a little bit. Get this. You're gonna get the slide the wrist pin back over. We'll take the second washer, the billet washer. We'll slide it. This is hard to do with one hand. We're gonna slide it in here. And slide the pin through just like that. Voila. Perfect fit. Now, I have questions. You know, people message me and they say they don't fit. They don't fit. They won't work in here. Well, guys, I mean, these are the same thickness. You just eliminate the step out of them and make them out of better material. So if you take apart a motor that has stock washers in it and your new washers don't fit, then you have a problem somewhere else. Whether I've already seen people have burrs on their rod, and the burrs and the wear comes on the rod from having faulty thrust washers. In my opinion, they start to wear. And I mean, you can see, I mean, there's plenty of room in here for expansion, heat expansion, whatever. So it's something to look at. You know, I mean, if it doesn't fit, then, you know, you got to look. Take a quick look, see what you can see. Might just be something simple. But if you look, as compared to not having thrust washers, you can see how much more, I mean, your play is down here. You throw this into a bore, all your play's down here on the big end. You throw this into a nice straight bore, it's going to be nice. Nice and true. It's going to stay in the center of the bore. Should be fine. So, I think I covered all the bases. See, this rod right here, actually, this was the main reason. See, it has a little bit of wear right there. And a little bit of wear that's on this rod, as you can see, it fits right in there perfectly. It coincides with this step right here. This step caused, you can see it, main reason why I changed this rod. There was nothing really wrong with it. It's still within tolerance and would have worked just fine, but you can see, there's a little, just look at that. You can see it. That's from the thrust washer stock. So, something to consider, guys. I mean, you know, metal doesn't wear good on metal. I'd rather have the billet washers in there getting a little bit of wear to them than metal on metal, honestly. You know, I mean, that's my opinion. So, you can see this. You see how nice this small end is. And this crank is old. I mean, this was the new rod that this where this rod came from, off this crank. It just, and this rod always had billet washers in it, so quite a bit of difference. So that about wraps it up. I'm pretty sure I covered all the bases, and I'd like to thank everybody who purchased from me and all the support and all the love and all the shout outs that I get. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that if there's good feedback from this video, possibly I can make maybe some more videos. Who knows, you know. I do a lot of cool stuff. Make some stuff, you know, chassis work, little stuff that I'm working on. So, who knows? Maybe I'll make some more, maybe I won't. But, yeah. Well, thanks for watching.